The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome, good people of the Bronx and beyond. My name is Henry Ovages, and I'm your host for A Life in Art. On this show, we will bring you engaging and personal conversations with artists with whom you may not be familiar. People who have been working on their craft for at least a decade and are at a crossroads where passion meets necessity. We'll discuss creativity and inspiration with our guest artists, but also find out what it takes to balance the struggles of practical life while pursuing their passions. Our guest today is a New York City stage and film actress whose credits are too numerous to count. She won the 2008 Innovative Theater Award for Best Leading Actress. She is also a director for the Niku Spoon Theater Company, as well as an acting and dialect coach in New York City. Today we learn about Stephani Barton-Farcas' life in art.
Be glad. We shall ascend in glory. We shall look down on that fallen woman. She will burn with our enemies in the fires of eternal torment.
Pray that it be so.
Pray for us. Pray for us.
The words. The words. Pray. Amen.
And here we are in the studio with Stephani Barton-Farcas. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for making me sound so interesting and busy and wonderful.
I'm sure you're much more interesting and busy and wonderful than how we made you sound.
Well, busy for sure.
Yeah,
busy for
very
sure.
well.
Yeah.
So our connection is you actually directed our executive producer and often host, co-host here, Christina Pagan, in a production of Red Noses. And you've also worked with one of our previous guests, Guy Ventilier.
A lot of Guy, 5 or 6 different shows now, yeah.
Right. So they had talked about how wonderful you are. So we had to get you here and have you in the chair. So
in the chair.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That makes it sound so.
I know.
Yes. But yeah, really interested in getting to know you a little bit better. And let's start at the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Born in Denver, Colorado. Moved around a bit, but primarily grew up not on this coast. I grew up in Oregon.
Okay.
And then went to California and did my bachelor's
where?
in California. Cal Arts,
okay.
California Institute of the Arts. Woohoo! And got a bachelor's there.
I see.
But then I really kind of diverged. I was in LA for maybe 5, 6 years after that, but then I went wacky and went to Europe and spent about 8, 9, 10 years in Europe and lived in Romania, lived in Hungary, traveled to Albania and Latvia and Bulgaria and you name it, and did a lot of traveling. So I spent about 10 years outside the States.
I see. And you were just interested in different countries, or were you finding yourself, or what's the basis for that?
Well, yeah, LA was not for me, and it kind of burned me out a little bit. And I'd been acting since I was like 6, so I'd really been acting a long time. So, I mean, and I ended up doing a lot of training films, and I was always acting. I was always an artist. I can't escape it. But I did a lot of working with disabled kids. I did a lot of developmental work and educational work, and in that years overseas, got a doctorate in business administration, and traveled to a lot of different places, which only made me richer, really, as an artist and human and person, realizing, okay, I'm squatting in the dirt talking to an Albanian guy about his goat, but really all we are concerned about is what are our kids going to eat,
right?
You know, and kind of put a perspective, I think, on my life and my future art that I'm now so grateful for.
Right. Yeah, it also puts a big perspective just on all over the world. You know, we like to center on our differences, but really the similarities are that at the end of the day, everyone's worried about how to put food on the table and how to, raise their kids and things of that nature, the basic human elements.
Yeah, and really still too the basic human elements of being an artist, because I was lucky enough to meet so many different artists and writers and painters and sculptors and dissidents, because that whole area was very much in flux then. A lot of the countries were having revolutions and killing people in the streets and all that stuff.
And unfortunately, that's still going on now.
Yeah, oh my gosh. But to kind of come in contact with a lot of those people and discover really so much similarity in how we approach art and how we think about our creative process and all that type of stuff. I mean, I had raised to think of diversity as a normal thing. My mother raised me to not differentiate between color and gay and straight, and but to really have it emphasized by 8 to 10 years overseas was, I think, all in preparation to come back to New York City and make a theater company.
There you go.
Which I did. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So as we stay, you know, in your past for a little bit longer, no, I definitely want to get into that. Was language a barrier while you were going to different countries, or was art uniting you, or did you pick up some of these languages, or? I
mean, I think English is spoken a lot more than we realize in America, because it's the primary language of TV.
Right.
It's the primary language of rock music, which I was in a hut in Africa with this whole tribe that couldn't speak any English. We had an interpreter, but we got to talking about music, one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I said, well, do they know Western music? He said, oh my God, yes, they love Western music. He's interpreting. And I said, well, what's one of their favorite songs? And he goes, he's talking to them. He goes, oh, they want to sing it for you. I said, oh, great, terrific. And I don't know what the heck I'm going to hear. But there's the 20 African tribesmen start singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh my.
Queen. It was their favorite song. Everybody knew it, and slowly people are coming out of huts singing it.
To join in.
And they're all singing it in kind of, phonetic-y, pigeon-y English, but this whole tribe is singing Galileo, Galileo, and doing the whole Queen thing, and I was like,
I'm sure.
God, this is amazing. I want to freeze this moment in time.
If that doesn't speak to how art can, bring unity, I don't know what does.
You. Yeah, yes. Yeah. And moments like that just are
for sure
treasures.
Yes.
Really.
So going back a little bit, you mentioned your mother. Do you have any siblings?
I do not. I have a lot of foster siblings. I'm an only child, but I was lucky enough to have 4, I think, foster kids. As I was in my teenage years, we kind of collected children. So as a teenager, I had 4 foster brothers and sisters. Again, of like differing racial makeups, and biracial and gay and straight and Asian, and so we had kind of a rainbow of kids in and out of the house, yelling and screaming, and dogs and cats and all that good stuff, which is only good.
I see. And where does your father fall in the equation?
I didn't know him, actually. He and my mom were kind of a briefy thing when I was young, and then separated, and then he remarried later, and didn't want to be involved too much. So
you didn't really have a relationship with him?
Didn't. But his loss, man.
Yeah. So, I agree.
But I've had certainly many father figures in my life. But my mom is an amazing human being.
It sounds like it just from the little bit that you tell us. Did she have any artistic inclinations as well, or?
When she was young, she was a dancer. Kind of was like, after many years in ballet, was like, this is going to kill my legs, forget it, and kind of stopped that. But she sings, she draws, she writes, and she loves wholeheartedly everyone she meets, which inspires them to then make art. So
that's beautiful.
Mom, I know.
No,
she'll watch this, and then she'll sit at home and go, oh, my daughter, and she'll get all emotional.
As she should. No, it's really a beautiful. So actually, I think that's a good spot for us to take our first break.
All right.
And when we come back, then we want to talk a little bit about how those life experiences of yours informed the work that you're doing now and that you would do, later on. So we'll take a quick pause there, but we'll be back with more about Stephani when we return.
Teachers today are finding new ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable.
People think I'm trash. but they're wrong. Today I'm just an aluminum can, but one day I could be a stadium.
Welcome back to Life in Art. We're here with director Stephani Barton-Farcas. So, you had talked about sort of traveling the world and studying at Cal Arts and then getting a master's in business administration. And then that leads you to, so you did the acting thing in California?
I did, yep.
For a long time. And then you come to New York
and here
when?
As well. Yeah, we came here in '96.
Okay.
So we've been here 20 years now. Came in '96, and I had no intention of starting a theater company. It was not in my brain at all. I was strictly an actress,
Right.
and just acted like crazy here for 4 years, I guess.
Mostly theatrical work or also film and TV?
Both-ish, you know. Yeah, I was. By then, I'd acted, I think, long enough. I was able to actually, because I'm pretty animated.
You don't say.
Yeah, which is great on stage, but when you go into audition for a film and you're like, they're like, oh my God, that's overwhelming, go away. So once I was able to tame that,
Okay.
then I began to work more in TV and film. But yeah, I started to develop a project with a couple other women, and it was about refugees, and I was having them kind of interview and deal with a lot of refugees that I knew, and so it was a very personal project for me. And we were kind of under the auspices of this theater group. And the whole point of the piece was refugees, women and children, differing nationalities, and all this type of stuff. And at one point, the lady who was with the theater company, she said, well, you know, I don't think that it's going to be a popular piece when you're done with it. I think the only way to make it palatable for audiences is if you make it about two white women who meet some refugees and are involved with refugees. And I just went, you really don't get what the heck's going on with this at all, do you? And I said, I'm not going to do that. And she said, well, then I'm not going to produce it. And I said, well, then you know what? I'm going to start my own friggin' production company on you. And so I just stood up and told the co-writers, I said, I'm going. It's my idea anyway. I'm leaving. I'm going to go make my own company. And God love every woman in that room. They all got up and they left with me.
Wow, quite a scene.
And we just walked out. And luckily, I had been involved with a lot of nonprofits and NGOs, so I knew how to file for a 501c3. And boom, we were a nonprofit.
And you had a business administration background as well.
Yeah, and I'd done grant writing, and it's like everything in my life had prepared me to do that. I just didn't know it until it happened. And boom, we had a production company. That show, Displaced, our very first production, sold out houses, was sponsored to be submitted for the Pulitzer for writing. I didn't get it, obviously, but it was nice to send in a bound manuscript to the Pulitzer Committee, so that was nice. And yeah, that was 16 years ago.
And that company that you're speaking of is then Niku Spoon Theater Company.
Niku Spoon, yeah.
So let's get into that a little bit. When I interview Guy Ventilier, he actually mentioned it, and as I was doing research a little bit before preparing for this interview, in my mind it was sort of like, oh, NICU, like the hospital term, is that where it comes from?
Yeah.
And then I find out that no, that actually the backstory is even much more, it's deeper than that. So if you don't mind just sharing that, where it comes from.
Well, when I very first went overseas, I went over to help with disabled and abandoned kids in Romania, many of whom were HIV positive, and we were kind of given little pseudo families of kids to work with. And one of the kids that actually, he was almost 5, and when you're 5, they send you to adult institutions in Romania, which are horrifying, especially for a 5-year-old. But they told me he's retarded, he's blind, he's deaf, he's mute. I don't know, toss a couple other disabilities in there. And they told me you don't want him because forget it, nobody can get anything from him. But me and this kid, for some reason, we connected. And I thought, I bet there's a lot happening in there that people are not aware of. So, long story short, about 6 months after I kind of took him in, he walked, he talked, he painted, he knew the alphabet, he wasn't blind at all. I do think there was some level of retardation or heavy autism spectrum involved. But one of the hardest things for him was eating like real food. They were all bottle fed forever, and he had passed that point in development where you go from bottle to food. So for him, it was just bottle. And we would have literally wrestling matches over me trying to get him to eat the darn solid food.
Right.
And one day I finally just said, I'm fed up. I'm going to feed this kid if it kills me. And I put banana on a spoon, and I just popped his jaw and shoved the darn banana in, and then closed his mouth quickly. And I would had him pinned on the floor, and it was, and all of a sudden it's like you could see, he realized, holy crud, there's something amazing in my mouth. And he relaxed, his body relaxed, and all of a sudden the lights went on. Bing! Good things come from this little thing that goes in my mouth, and it puts good things. So the spoon became his thing. He carried it, he slept with it, he talked to it, he would bounce moonbeams and sunbeams off of it. And it became like this symbol for all of us working with the kids. Somebody'd go, oh, I don't think he's ever gonna walk. And somebody'd go, remember Niku's spoon, man, don't say never. So when it came time to make a name for the company, I told the name to the other two co-founders, and they were like, oh my God, that's perfect. I get it, that's perfect. And so, boop.
Of course.
Thus was born Niku's spoon.
Yeah, and then the type of work that you were deciding to do also just fits in and tied in so perfectly. Yeah. So with that description, it takes us to the end of our second segment, but when we come back, I really want to try to dig in a little bit more and just discuss a little bit about the magnificent work that you've been doing. No, it's really amazing. So stick around, don't go anywhere, and we're going to hear about that when we come back, and we'll have more with Stephani right after this break.
Today, 1 out of every 4 American kids is Hispanic. Many of the future doctors who will care for us, the scientists and entrepreneurs of our country, can be your kids. And the Hispanic Scholarship Fund helps you prepare, plan, and pay for your kids' college education.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science, become the mayor or something, make the situation better for other people. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
And we're back on A Life in Art with Stephani Barton-Farcas. So we had talked about the genesis of the name of your theater company and how the first production came to be. So speak to me a little bit more about the importance of the work that you have chosen to do with that theater company and why.
Well, I didn't realize it at the time when we made the company, but we were the first ever fully inclusive theater company in New York City history, which is really unimaginable to me that in 2001 there was no other company in New York City that was opening its doors to men, women, young, old, straight, gay, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, biracial, transgendered, fresh off the boat from Guatemala and no one will hire me because I have an accent, or whatever the situation was, deaf, blind, mute, cerebral palsy. Nobody was like, yeah, come on, we want all you guys. So, shame on you, New York theater companies, seriously. So we were the first one to just go, everybody's welcome, and to actively advertise and solicit and call community centers and churches and say, yeah, no, where is that actor with cerebral palsy? Give me his number. Let's call him, because many artists stop acting.
Right, so you really sought them out, which was a big part of the
in the beginning,
job.
yeah, for the first probably 7 or 8 years, we really actively sought them out, and I would go sit in people's living rooms and go, come on, you're not an artist now. You're just a different artist. Something happened and now you're different, but you're still an artist and you have to come back and act. And most of the time I was pretty successful in talking them into coming and doing work with us, which is
Right.
great.
Yes, absolutely. So you wrote this essay that I'm going to quote now,
Oh, no.
Against Sameness in Theater, and then we'll let you know where you can go find that. But one of the paragraphs that sort of struck to me, I'm an actor myself, that you said there is, there's a richness inherent in working with artists who have a bit more baggage than a bad day. There's a richness of life experience, less bull in general, and if given a safe place to play and rehearse and make art, a creative belief in new artistic ways of being. Disabled artists offer a springboard for new performance styles, reach new audiences, deaf, blind, and hearing audiences simultaneously, for instance, and are a well of boundless creation for both the artists and the audiences. You could find that on HowlRound. That just, the whole essay, I certainly, encourage our viewers to go and read the whole thing. But that, as a Hispanic Latino actor, just really, really spoke to me. And what you were saying before of, living in New York, it's sort of wild to think that a company like that didn't exist before yours. And I could certainly understand the challenges of, that one would think like, oh, but it's a lot of work to do this. And you talk in that article also about, going beyond the sort of, I'm paraphrasing here, but the token,
Yep.
Disabled person, Black
Right.
person, Latino person. And you even did a production of Richard III, which was sort of reversed, and we spoke with Guy when he
Yeah.
was a guest here, where he was sort of the only able-bodied
Yeah.
to,
Where the society and everybody in it was disabled,
Exactly.
and Richard was perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
So your experiences, working in Romania and all of that, that you brought here to New York, do you think there's another company or another person that could do the work that you're doing, or your life experience, really was suited to do this type of work?
I mean, I think my life experience and everything that happened was really leading me up to that point. Absolutely, for sure. I think while there's no other company our size currently doing this fully yet, I do think there's 3 or 4 that are starting, that are venturing into that. And I am always, of course, nagging every theater company I know to open their doors, to be more inclusive, to do more stuff. And it's coming. I mean, diversity now is a big thing, and inclusion's a big thing, and seeing a lot of disabled artists for a lot of roles is happening more. I know, because I know them all, and they all call me and they go, I have an audition for this, and I go, yeah, get them. So I think it's happening.
We're moving in the right direction.
But I mean, when the day comes when we don't have to have this conversation, when you can walk into an audition, any audition, anywhere in the United States, and audition for any role you want, and nobody gives a heck what your background is, and we don't have to have this conversation, then we're good. Then we're where it should be. When somebody can wheel in a wheelchair and audition for the lead in anything. I don't care if it's a musical or not, I don't care.
Yeah.
Are they the best person for the role? And if they are, give it to them. If they're not, say no, you suck, get out of here. When we don't have to have the conversation, then we're where we where we should be.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the real equality that we need to strive for. And in the arts, I mean, that's what art is supposed to do.
I mean, hello, yeah.
Right. So, been doing great work there. As we're in our last segment now. So I want to know, so what's in the future for you? I hear, rumors that you might be moving to Hawaii.
Yeah.
What's that all about, and what does the future hold for you?
I'm going to Hawaii we're going to try it for a year. I'm going to go do some guest directing at the University of Hawaii in Hilo. I created a performance style where we combine both deaf actors and hearing actors simultaneously, so that both deaf and hearing audiences can share performances together.
Fantastic. And this is something that you call co-playing, I believe, and it's something that you sort of created,
yes?
Yeah,
we created it kind of out of whole cloth, out of necessity, really. We really wanted our deaf audiences and our hearing audiences, because we had both. We wanted them to be able to simultaneously come to shows together, react together, laugh together, cry together, and then look at each other and go, oh my God, we're sharing the moment as an audience. Oh, wow, this is... So we created that performance style. So I'm going to go to Hawaii, yay, and direct at least a show for them and see what's up there. I'm also looking, I always dream big, because if you don't, what are you doing? So I'm formulating this, what I want to be a global project. I want to take advantage of the internet right now. And I will be sending out a call about the time we're doing this here. And I'm calling it Globe. And I'm going to be sending out call for probably 6 writer, actor, gay, lesbian, straight, black, white, disabled, doesn't matter, everybody. But writers, actors who are PR and marketing savvy, people in 6 different locations globally, plus a technical director who understands web and streaming platforms, and myself. And then we're going to, via Skype, and sometimes real time and sometimes travel, we're going to create a script that deals with what everybody's dealing with right now today, which is internet and family and politics and war and bombings and strangeness and long-distance love affairs, of which there are tons more now because we're global and everything's internet and digital, and create a performance, which then we're going to stream live from 8 different global locations on one streaming platform, which our audience pays a fee, logs onto the streaming platform, and watches it live.
That's amazing.
I thought of that. So I'll be, posting on Facebook and emailing and sending calls out globally, but this as well should, if you're in Guatemala visiting and seeing this, and you're a writer and an actor, send in your info to
we're in the Bronx, but also, through our YouTube channel, we reach. So I'm glad that we have the exclusive.
Yeah, it's almost like a returning to getting all this information from global things, and then doing this in New York, and then in a way moving back out to the world at large and trying to connect us all again.
That's fantastic. So we're running out of time here. So just the last question, I guess, that I'll ask is, that we like to ask of the majority of our guests is, if you had it to do over again and choose a life in art, would you, or would you choose a different path?
Absolutely, a life in art. Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. My life has been so much richer and filled with everything than it would have been had I been, I don't know, an attorney or an accountant or whatever. And I always think too about young artists a lot of times who ask me for advice. And I always say, if you really are an artist, if it is something where you're going to die if you can't do this, then don't let anybody make you stop. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. And if you have somebody in your life who makes you feel guilty for being an artist, they need to not be in your life. Because if you're an artist, you're an artist. And that's what you have to do first. And you can only be with the people that love you as an artist, because that's who you are.
Tough, but very important. And
Darn.
That'll actually wrap it up for us. We run out of time. But thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for coming on our show and sharing a little bit of it with us. I think it's utterly important.
Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. So we've run out of time, as we tend to do. Thanks to Stephani for sharing her life in art with us, and thanks to all of you for joining us today. We want to encourage you to connect with us on social media. Visit us on Facebook and YouTube at A Life in Art, and Instagram and Twitter at A Life in Art TV. We'll be back with more stories from emerging artists when we return with A Life in Art.
Teachers today are finding new ways to instill old lessons, proving that greatness can be found in everyday places and that you don't need to be famous to be unforgettable.